Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be doing some more building. I've been thinking about building a fish market ever since I've thought of the idea. But before we start with the build, I want to show you how much area and space this will take up. So I want it to lead to the dock, so it's kind of like you fish at the dock. And at first I thought maybe I can make it on land, like on this grassy part. But then I was thinking maybe I can do it on the beach. And I still haven't exactly decided whether I want to make it on the grass or the beach. So I decided I'm probably going to do it kind of half and half. So like some parts on the grass and some parts on the beach. I've seen some people do it and it looks really good. So hopefully I can pull it off. But I think that's enough information for now. And without further ado, let's get started. So let's go ahead and start with the build. I'm first going to start with the path because I need something to lead to the dock area. So I'm just picking up some items and now we're gonna start with it. But anyways, in my last video, I said that there was a build that I was thinking of doing for a really long time. I don't know if I said how long that was, but I think it was like longer than 2 months. I've been thinking of doing this build for longer than 2 months. It's been in my brain, but this item, that stacked fish containers, I thought it was an item at first. And yeah, if you watched my last video, you would know about it. But it was this build that I was thinking of, and this build that I wanted to do for a really long time, but I wasn't able to. But now I finally got that DIY actually in that video, so I was super excited about that. But I actually got that DIY in that video, and now I'm able to do this build. But enough rambling, let me actually talk about what I'm currently doing. So I'm making like a kitchen area where they would prepare their fish, and it is a little bit random, but I was also thinking of making this a fish market and also kind of a little bit of a like sushi restaurant. When I was making my restaurant build, that was like one of my first videos I've ever done. I think it was my first build I've ever done. But when I was making my restaurant way back, I was thinking of what kind of restaurant should I make it. I was thinking all these options because there were so many new 2.0 items that were perfect candidates for it. But I settled on doing an Asian restaurant. But one of my options or one of my ideas were to do a sushi restaurant. Mostly because of that one sushi item, the one I just picked up. I really was obsessed with that item and I was so excited about it. I really wanted to incorporate it in a build. I did end up using it in that other restaurant build, so it wouldn't have mattered, but that was one of my ideas. So I decided to bring back some of those ideas that I had back then and make kind of a sushi restaurant. That's why I had these conveyor belts. Also, speaking of the conveyor belts, they may be completely random because they're usually for probably something else. But I use them in my little restaurant area or my little kitchen area because if you go to any of those really fancy Japanese sushi places where they would have those conveyor belts and you would grab the food. I don't know if you've ever been to those, but I've been to one like a couple of times before and it was such an experience for me. It is pretty expensive though, but that was like my thought process. Even though the conveyor belts don't connect, but they still look pretty cute and I still think it looks pretty good. But now I'm adding some big items, like I'm adding these yaks, which I think are perfect. The moment I thought of the fish market idea, I knew I had to add these yaks. They're such good items. Yeah, and I just started adding more of the details around the kitchen area and around the little stand. I wanted to add a lot of layering and stack the fishes on top of each other as much as possible. Like I stacked the smaller fish tank on top of the tuna, which has a bigger fish tank. I also used the stacked fish container and the regular fish containers as part of the layering, and I think that came out pretty good. I usually don't add that much layering on my island because I just don't really know how to do it, but I think I pulled it off pretty good for this build. I also didn't mention before, but I did try to add all kinds of fish related objects. I didn't want to limit it to only 2.0 items. I try to add a variety of items, such as some uncommon fishing items. Like later in the video, you'll see that I placed down my fishing rod, which isn't that uncommon, but I do feel like people use more of the items and less of the tools or materials. This next part is very random, but I'm showing off myself eating a sea bass. I made the sea bass a long time ago and forgot to eat it, so I guess it's probably very gross by now, but we're gonna think about it this way. It provided a lot of nutrients, and this is also revenge for all the times I have caught the sea bass when I didn't want to, and when I thought it was a big fish and it was something rare. But instead it was a dumb sea bass. I'm working on the beach a little bit more, adding some items. I didn't want to clutter up my beach too much though, because I wanted to have walking space and I didn't want to scoot over each time I wanted to get from one section to another. So I try to keep it simple but also pleasing to the eye. So I just added a couple of items on the sides, but as I said, I didn't want to clutter it too much. Also because I wanted shells to spawn there sometimes, so I try to keep it to one section where I would make it very cluttered. And here's when I placed my fishing rod. I had nothing else to place and I thought that would look good, and surprisingly it's actually the same color as the little fishing rod stand. I think that's what it's called. It was black as well, so I decided that would have been perfect. And now I'm redoing the path a little bit more. I actually forgot to mention earlier, because I was just busy rambling off, that I did mess with the path a lot off camera. I mean, I did film it, but it was like a whole mess. So I decided to cut most of it out and just show the beginning and the end. But here I'm just showing some of the changes I made. I decided to make the path a little bit wider and more of a path leading to the dock, because before it looked like there were random pieces of tiles scattered. So I decided to make it more of a path, and I also fixed up this area a little bit, just added a couple more tiles because I felt like it was a little bit tight on space. Now I'm placing down some seating outside of my little sushi restaurant, fish market, whatever you would call it, area. I added the bistro table and I added some of these iron chairs because I feel like there aren't really any chairs that go with this, or there aren't any of its own chair, if you know what I mean. Like, I feel like every set has like maybe a table of its own, a chair of its own, maybe a bed of its own. But this one wasn't really a set, it was just a table and whatever chair you decide to pick. So I decided to use the iron garden chairs because I feel like they fit well with a cafe-ish table. Now I'm starting to add the final touches. I'm starting to add the little items like the fish containers, the ones that you could barely see, but I feel like all the details matter. And the fish market is complete. I'm gonna show you a final tour of the whole entire fish market. So we start off on the pier, and the pier didn't change at all. I didn't remove anything or change anything. But over here to the beach where it used to be empty, it is now full. Over here is a little like checkout station for, sushi, and like you can buy your fish here. And then over here is a little, if you purchase like sushi, you can eat over here. Yeah, we just have a few like fishing elements. Like I put these yaks up, so it's kind of like you go out to sea to get the fish. I try to do a lot of layering with the fish and the crates. So I think that came out pretty good. And I'm pretty happy on how this came out at the end. Thanks for watching. I hope you like this little fish marketplace I built. I really appreciate it if you like and subscribe. And until then, I'll see you next time. Bye!